Greeting, friends of Christ Lutheran Church. This is Pastor Craig Johnson with his midweek devotional for Holy Week, Holy Wednesday as they refer to it. Typically, we begin thinking about Holy Week with Palm Sunday, and then we kind of skip over to Maundy, Thursday. But Holy Wednesday is actually one of those days in the midst of it all, too. This is the third time I've tried this today. I've had some interesting interruptions, including my dog. But we're going to give it a try and see what we can do. Today, as I was looking at my email online, I got my Christ in My Home devotion today, and I noticed that the devotion for Holy Wednesday is the little tiny snippet, the piece in John 13 that we do not include on the Maundy Thursday readings. And it was interesting because it has some application to our congregation in particular, and I'll let you know about that in just a few minutes. But the reading is from John 13, beginning with verse 21. After saying this, Jesus was troubled in spirit and declared, "Very truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me." The disciples looked at one another, uncertain of whom he was speaking. One of his disciples, the one whom Jesus loved, was reclining next to him. Simon Peter, therefore, motioned to him to ask Jesus of whom he was speaking. So while reclining next to Jesus, he asked him, "Lord, who is it?" Jesus answered, "It is the one whom I give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in the dish." So when he had dipped the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas, son of Simon Iscariot. After he received the piece of bread, Satan entered into him. Jesus said to him, "Do quickly what you are going to do." Now, no one at the table knew why he said this to him. Some thought that because Judas had the common purse, Jesus was telling him, "Buy what you need for the festival," or that he should give something to the poor. So after receiving the piece of bread, he immediately went out, and it was night. So often on Maundy, Thursday, tomorrow night, which we're used to hearing Jesus' commandment to love one another in the example of washing the disciples' feet, in the midst of that, we have this kind of scene of betrayal. And it is a marvelous example of the evangelist telling us about God's very nature in this reading, that even as his spirit is troubled, even as Jesus knows that he is facing Gethsemane and Golgotha and the cross, he is in the midst of his disciples, including one who is about to betray him, one whose feet, just a few minutes before this interaction took place in John 13, he has washed as an example to them. Pretty powerful stuff, that God is not about revenge. God is not about about choosing who to love, but serving all, even the one who will lead ultimately to his crucifixion. Now, one of the connections we have to our own congregation is this particular scene. You may not know it, but it has a pretty central example at Christ Lutheran Church. So if you enter the sanctuary at Christ Lutheran, you'll notice there's a pewter rendition of Da Vinci's Last Supper scene, where everybody's sitting on the same side of the table and they're all kind of leaning in and doing different things like that. And that is as we enter into the sanctuary. And I've always thought, it's a nice rendition in pewter plate and all of that. And there's some Latin words underneath it. A few years ago, when Pastor Matt Latow was with our congregation while he was between calls, Matt says, I was a classics major, right? And I said, "No, I didn't know that." And he goes, "You know what that says underneath the picture of the Last Supper and the entrance to your sanctuary?" And I said, "No, I don't know what it says." He goes, "Very truly, I tell you, one of you is about to betray me." So every time we walk into the sanctuary, we're walking under the depiction of the Last Supper, but the words, surely one of you is about to betray me. And, it may not be the ideal piece of religious art or phrase, but there's truth in it too. And not just for Judas, but there were others at the table. Peter, who denied him 3 times when he said he wouldn't, and all of the disciples who fled in fear when he was taken by the Roman authorities and to the cross. And there's some truth in that as well. The Jesus who washes our feet is also the Jesus who still loves us, still sticks with us, still serves us in light of our own disappointments and sometimes even betrayals to God and to one another as part of our fallen nature. But thanks be to God that Jesus had the cross before him, and the love of God for all of creation, including you and me, is greater than anything we could do, and that nothing in all creation can separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus is a true thing to consider. And also by Christ's example, reminding us to love our enemies and pray for those who persecute you. And right now, our biggest enemy is actually not a person, but a virus that is messing with all of the order of things, even Holy Week. And so this week, I ask you to ask God for extra grace as we journey from the upper room to Golgotha and finally to the moment of resurrection and the words, "He is risen. He is risen indeed." A few announcements for this week. I want to let you know our feeding program continues to go really well. Thanks to all the volunteers. This week especially giving thanks to John and Corwin Reese, who made deliveries this week, as well as to Kenton and Mary Wolf, who did the sorting before the deliveries. Thank you, you guys, for helping make sure that happens. You're helping make sure our hungry neighbors get fed. Last week's in-gathering on Sunday went really well, and we look forward to probably doing that again this Easter Sunday. The community of Aurora has actually asked that we do. A lot of local neighbors through the I Love Aurora Facebook page participated. Want to also give you a heads up, and some of these notes are actually in the email blast you'll be receiving, that our mutual ministry team is going to be helping kind of check in with one another. We have a new phone directory, and they're breaking up into groups, and you might be getting a phone call that just kind of says how you're doing, checking in. And I invite you to do it informally too. Just make sure everyone is doing well, and if there's special needs, to please let me know. So you will be receiving a Maundy Thursday service, a Good Friday service, and an Easter Sunday service by video this week. I encourage you to look for them. And although we cannot be together, to use that opportunity to journey not just with this congregation, but with the Church Universal, as we all journey with Jesus to the cross and to the tomb in the proclamations of God's victory over death and the grave. Blessings to you. Be safe, be well, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Peace be with you.